Good morning, and a warm welcome here, live from Eindhoven for another live breakfast session. Today, we are going to talk about AI from edge to the cloud. I'm very excited. I'm, first of all, being your host today, but second, this is actually for us the first one. It's a pilot. It's a special edition, because next to the guys that are joining us in the live stream, to the folks online, we have also here an audience, so I'm actually looking at a quite nice group of people that took the effort to join us here live in the studio in Eindhoven. So also thank you from my side to you guys. There is also something others that is also very special today, is that at the same time that I'm talking to you here in English, I could have also said Goedemorgen, but we also have it in 4 different languages, so the ones that are dialing in via the live stream, they can either choose French, Spanish, Italian or German. So we try to expand so that our message gets across. As said, we are going to talk about AI from the edge to the cloud, and I will not do that alone. I also have some guests which I will be asking to the stage. So let's have a look at our topic of today, AI from the edge to the cloud. I want to start to give it a little bit of an introduction with some market facts, some market insights, because that gives a nice introduction into the topic why we are addressing this. And it's interesting if you look at reports like the World Security Report, where 1,700 experts, chief security officers, have been asked. But also if you look at our own research that we did as Bosch, the Bosch Technology Compass or the Bosch Tech Compass 2023, we all agree that although we may be, if we talk about AI, we already think behind security, beyond security, as we nicely put it. But the main pain point we still see is how to strengthen protection of people and property, so the physical security. And why you already saw a number flying by, a staggering number of $1 trillion is still on an annual basis lost in revenue because of physical security breaches. So that's also the reason why the industry is still focusing on that. It still finds it feels a little bit maybe conventional, but that is what it is. What is also interesting, if you look at those research reports, there are a couple of things that are striking, and not without reason that we are talking today about AI. Because what also the experts agree upon is that AI is there to stay. AI is something that will have a lasting impact on our industry. AI is something that we see is the key in order to further strengthen protection of people and property. Also, if you look at those reports, you look at the responses, they clearly say AI is one of the key technologies that we see in the next 10 years, which also means that demand for solutions that are AI-enabled will be increasing, as well as the security budgets. That's also the estimate. I'm simply giving you here the facts, as you can also find them in these reports that I'm referring to. If you then look at the challenges that we have, so where can then AI play a role, you also see clearly a couple of challenges that we have to tackle. We need to be helping people in the sense of to make them more efficient, because you cannot pay every single time attention to what you see on screens, etc. So let technology help you. Try to make sure that they save time. We should be able to shorten response times, because the earlier we can respond to something, the better it is. Ideally, we could even go into a situation where you can prevent things from happening, because imagine if we do that, preventing, that would have a huge impact on protection of people and property, but also will save us a lot of money. So those are really, so the response times, the efficiency gains, also helping people, those are really the things where AI comes in. But AI also comes with many advantages, but also with limitations. And we at Bosch have 3 words, how we want to overcome those limitations so that you can take full advantage of AI. And those 3 words are specific, simple, and supportive. I'm not going to give away what we are going to discuss, but that's exactly the point where I'm going to ask my guests to the stage, Niels, also Moritz, and Max, if they can join me to start our discussion on these 3 words and how it will help you convincing your customers. Guys? Good morning. Thank you for joining me, because otherwise I'm all alone here. Good morning, Max, Moritz, and also Niels. Niels, we start with you. You're on our so-called hot seat here.
Correct.
So if you hear us refer to the hot seat, then we are literally talking about that seat. Niels, welcome. Warm welcome also from my side, and thanks that you join us. And with you, I would like to dive a little bit into the topic of being specific. And of course, we have already looked at some questions, and let's have a look at the first one. And of course, if you have questions, what I already said during the live stream, then please send them in. I will see them on the screen in front of me. But let's start with the first one, Niels. So why do you think in the video security industry you need to be more specific?
Yes, so first of all, and also thank you to everyone here and also online. It's a great session, and what we have as a first point, be specific. I think in the recent years, we see a lot of companies talking about artificial intelligence. You have coffee machines, you have even toothbrushes, which claim to be smart, intelligent, and sometimes it's difficult even for end users to understand what does it really mean. What does it mean to be intelligent for a product? And we want to be specific, and even in those times right now, with ChatGPT and generative AI, being such a big topic, it's also important to keep up because intelligent 10 years ago is something very different today.
And that's a good cue, because I agree with what you say. It would also be strange if I now would be disagreeing with you. But if you now relate this discussion, what you just said about AI, to us. So what did we do in the last, I would say, couple of months, years, to become more specific?
Correct. So if you look at our history, so we in our cameras started off certainly with essential video analytics, which we introduced quite some years ago, and then came up with intelligent video analytics, which were even more precise. And recently, I think to become even more specific, we introduced Intelligent Video Analytics Pro. So the IVA Pro packages, which we will also talk about a bit in a couple of minutes, to ensure that we are not only talking about the technology, but also tie it to a value proposition for the customer.
Okay. Understood. And before, indeed, you already said it, let's have a look at those licenses, or those packages, as we call them. Let's also ask the audience, so you guys here, but also you guys online, where do you see, and there should be a poll question now, where do you see most advantage of AI? There are a couple of industries are mentioned, and you can make multiple choices, so it's not only one. And we would be very interested to see what are you thinking of when it comes to AI and where it would be used. So you can now already pick up your phones or look at the screen in front of you. Maybe it's a little bit confusing today because you see some text on your screen for the ones that are in the live stream. You see some text on the screen, but next to that you see a couple of blue buttons. You only need to press those blue buttons and not click the text. Has everything to do with the fact that we are streaming in 4 languages. So let's see if the first results are already coming in. And hopefully that also fits a little bit our expectation.
Right.
You already, so we can switch from area, but I can also see it here. So what you clearly see is that now E, so in this case city surveillance, is the one that is actually voted most, because we are almost at 45%. And then the next runner-up is actually number C, so in this case traffic, which is also maybe not so strange, typically also closely related to city surveillance. And then if I have to pick a third, then it would definitely be number A, or energy and utility. So you can keep the votes coming in, because we will also, after the live stream, we will be sharing also the results of the poll questions, etc., because I think it's also interesting to share these facts. But Niels, to that, so keep those votes coming. We still see the results. Let's look at our IVA Pro, because I believe you have some examples or something to say about our IVA Pro. And you probably also can relate to what you saw here from a scoring point of view.
Correct. So if I may interpret also the results, I think it was quite interesting to see that city surveillance has such a large fraction, we can now only hypothesize what this, why this is how it is, but it potentially could be, since it's such large networks like city surveillance, if you don't have any intelligence, it's basically impossible for an operator to keep track of all the cameras. So you even need some analytics to point to the right cameras to look at. And in a smaller installation, it's easier even without analytics to keep track of everything that's happening. And if we then go more into this traffic direction, which has had also quite some votes, I think that's already what we have in our IVA Pro packages.
Exactly.
Some solutions, and maybe that's something good to speak about. So we have, when you talk about that, we try to be specific by also tying our analytics offerings to the different applications. So we have our IVA Pro buildings, which gives you a person and people detection, and already solves a lot of use cases around the building. So for example, if there is a car in the parking lot, or if there's somebody loitering in front of an entrance. Then the IVA Pro traffic is more for traffic setting, where you maybe also want to have subclasses for the vehicles. So you maybe want to distinguish, is this vehicle a truck or is it a bicycle? And by that you can, for example, solve a use case where you can say, I don't want to have bicycles driving into a tunnel, and then you can set an alert based on bicycles, for example, going into a tunnel. Thirdly, we also have our IVA Pro perimeter. At the perimeter, there are also specific challenges. So AI depends on the application. And there we not only have people and vehicles, but we also have a generic motion alarm, because it might be that the person that tries to enter your top secret facility, so to say, is kind of disguised or is crawling on the ground, and you want to make sure that you don't miss it, no matter how this person looks like.
And you saw 3 runners-up, so basically energy utility as the last one, the first one city surveillance, the second one traffic, and that's then also nicely relating to these packages.
Correct, absolutely. And I think also for the city surveillance, I think that was the camera that was also shown previously with our Autodome 7100i. We now also introduced the latest generation of IVA Pro intelligent tracking, which also allows then to tie the artificial intelligence together with our cameras and allows to detect, classify and track objects while the camera is moving.
But what you're describing, Niels, because we could also argue in the past where we started with essential video analytics, intelligent video analytics, and now this IVA Pro, also there we could classify and these type of things. So to a certain extent, there were things possible. So what is now the striking difference between the IVA Pro packages, as we are looking at it now, and what we had before?
Correct. So the most important difference between our more classical essential video analytics, intelligent video analytics, and now the IVA Pro is that we change the fundamental way how those algorithms work. So in the past, when we were talking about essential video analytics, but also intelligent video analytics, we were talking about optical flow and classical image processing. Now with IVA Pro, we have deep learning under the hood. And this means for essential video analytics and IVA, we needed some smart engineers, like also Moritz, who is later explaining something about auto calibration.
That's already raising expectations now, Moritz. So.
Absolutely. And we needed some smart engineers which came up with rules, which said, okay, if I have an image, maybe there's a black pixel next to a white pixel, and this is then a car. And you needed really to handcraft those rules. Nowadays, with this deep learning, you have a huge neural network. You give some examples. So you have a whole lot of images where you say, here are pictures of vehicles and people. You also tell, by labeling those images, that's where the person in the image is, that's where the vehicle is. And then you just give those images to the machine, and the machine finds the rule itself. And if you do that on a large scale, that's what we see now with all this generative AI coming up, that even works much better than hand designing those rules. Does this mean now that everybody can do it in the same way? No, for sure not, since you still need the right data and the knowledge how to design the architectures and how to fit them into the resource-constrained camera. And that's really also something what I think also will address later. Now also, where then maybe also the cloud can come in. Because
exactly.
One thing we still have to address is you still have to fit it on a tiny little camera with a high accuracy.
And before we go there, indeed, because there are, of course, always some limitations, because technology is great, but there are also many limitations still. We will address that. But if you talk, we said it, from AI, from the edge to the cloud. So the obvious question there is, looking at edge, what are the advantages of having AI at the edge?
Correct. So in the end, it depends on the use case, and we also see that's what we ask for those different verticals, so industry segments, differences. So sometimes it might be that depending on the application, there is a requirement on latency. So this means, for example, if you think of license plate recognition, you maybe don't want a person to wait with the car for 15 seconds in front of the gate before it opens. In this case, there's a latency requirement. It might also be other application, let's think in the government area, where you do not want to transmit your very sensitive data to the cloud. And in those situations, you will for sure need some processing very close to the sensor, meaning in the camera. However, there might be other applications where the cloud is more of an advantage, and that I think we will also dive into.
We will ask Max somewhat later. And if you link it then to the industry trends, what you see, the pains, the challenges, etc., like response times, is that also something where you would see an advantage of edge analytics?
Yeah, definitely. I think for some highly critical applications, when really seconds matter, then I think we, for example, see it now with what we launch in the US with our visual gun detection. There it's really, response time is crucial. We also had one large retailer there in the US which were telling us that every second they know it earlier, that's a possibility to, for example, already lock the doors and to be proactive about the situation. And this latency can really become dangerous.
And that's also an interesting point that you make with the proactiveness, because having more time to respond, being proactive, that of course can cause, or at least let's say realize that you can maybe avoid lots of damages and even personal injuries. But it's nice that you talk about it and you're very enthusiastic about it. And that's also the reason why we have you on the stage here. But it's great that we talk about it as a manufacturer, great stuff, great performance, etc. But if I now would look at the folks that are joining us in the live stream, but also you guys here, is there also some social proof? Because it's great that we tell, it's great, but... And I believe there you also have something to share with us.
Absolutely. So, we were very excited to learn that we have been awarded recently once with this Detector Award, which is also shown here, for our video analytics specifically, but also more precisely on our auto calibration and on our very simple setup, which we'll also show later here in this show. And secondly, the second award we recently got, which is not yet publicly announced, but will become public shortly, is the CES Innovation Award, which we'll get at the next Consumer Electronics Show, specifically for our gun detection system. So some of you, which also followed the last live stream, know we launched this gun detection system, which can, on the one hand, visually detect if somebody carries a gun, but on the other hand, also detect gunshots outside the field of view. And for this combined product, we will receive 2 innovation awards, one in the category product in support of human security, and the other one in the category AI. Artificial intelligence at the CES next year.
Okay, so also there on the CES, we will probably in the next couple of weeks see some more communication. Which brings me for this part a little bit to the last question, is as we already told it, so AI offers many advantages. We also see a great advantage when it comes to one of the main key points, protection of people and property, but there are definitely also some limitations. And how would you see, how can we best manage them?
Correct. Absolutely. Especially when we look at the edge. As I mentioned before, we are on a resource-constrained device. So sometimes it might be a problem that we don't have enough resources to achieve the right accuracy for some use cases. So we certainly always want to do more on this tiny little device. So this is one thing where the cloud may come in. Since there we have much more resources. And also another shortcoming is the cameras are typically installed in the field for around 7 years. So in the meantime, you do not get more resources on this tiny little device. And also there, the cloud may come in as an advantage. And as a last point, for some applications like our AV airport traffic, It's required that you really get the best output and the most accurate data to set it up. And in the past, this has been very tedious because you had to manually calibrate the camera, and this also led to, that's what we learned also from customers, a low adoption, because this long process really decreases the willingness to use those analytics. And that's also why we see it's important to make it simple, not also for the installers, but also for the end users to use the technology.
No, that's a great point. And to recap a little bit, so the specificity, so basically being specific, that actually comes from the fact that real life data that you use, so better trained, higher accuracy. So that's why we say the more specific you can be, the best it is. And the answer to that would be IVA Pro. But what you also made as a point is that, yes, it's complex technology. We can do a lot of it. There can be some constraints that we also are addressing later on when we talk to the cloud. But there is something that you also said in the middle, is this calibration topic. And I think now, Morris, I'm already looking at you. That's a topic that we would like to address as next. So how can we make it as simple as possible?
Yeah, I mean, let me take the hot chair here. So
exactly.
Yeah, how can we make calibration more simple? I mean, generally, so first of all, I would like to address one point is really, we are often asked, where do we need calibration? When do we need calibration? And I'd like to iterate a bit here or elaborate a bit here. So first of all...
Because that's also a little bit what the industry makes us believe,
yes,
is that
exactly.
Many of us say, calibration no longer needed, out of the box, and you are good to go.
Exactly.
But that's a little bit more...
It's a bit more nuanced, of course. Yeah. First of all, and it's really important, all of our cameras will run out of the box, right? So they will run in what we refer to as 2D mode. And in many instances, this 2D mode is already sufficient. But obviously, calibration does add a lot of context, and in many cases, we can basically benefit from that. So a good way to describe it is that basically calibration allows us really to basically lift the camera from this 2D imaging device to a measurement tool. And this allows us, for example, quite obviously, to capture metric properties. These are, for example, object sizes, velocities, but also geolocation. And if the camera is calibrated in that way, then we call it 3D mode, because now we can capture 3D properties of the scene. In addition to that, it's also important to mention, Niels already mentioned that in regards to perimeter, calibration can help a lot here too, since it allowed us basically to suppress a lot of false detection and also in turn basically increase the range of our cameras. So there's more benefits than just having metric properties. And just to summarize here now a bit, because I talked a lot, so our camera will run out of the box in 2D mode, but there are obviously cases if you want metric information or if you want to improve the performance in certain scenarios that you want calibration.
Yeah, so what you're saying in conclusion is that calibration, yes, it is needed. On the one hand side, if you want to have extra information, like the metrics you were referring to, GPS location, speeds, these type of things. So that's a necessity. So there needs to be a form of calibration. And the other thing is that also calibration, depending on your situation, can or should be used to reduce false alerts.
Yes.
But okay, then of course the obvious question also, Niels already said it, but if it takes me too long, how should I handle this?
Yeah, fair point. I mean, this is a good question. And one thing really important to mention here is that obviously we analyzed this. So a few years back, our product management actually did a really well analysis where we asked a lot of users and consumers what type or which part of the installation process does take too long, which parts did you like, which parts don't you like. And we actually learned three things. So the first one is it takes several minutes typically to calibrate a camera. It's actually quite long, and in bad scenarios, it takes even 15 to 30 minutes. It's obviously way too long.
Per camera?
Per camera, yeah.
Okay.
Second part is that it was usually not, to put it mildly, their favorite part of installation. And third is that we often got the remark that it's really tricky to train new people, so oftentimes with a tool that is not too intuitive to use, and so they have to spend basically more time to onboard people. And now what we actually want to do is really to improve on all three aspects. So we want to be faster in calibration, we want to make it more fun, or at least be more pleasant to use, and finally, We want to really improve this onboarding process to streamline that part so that really people get to use it quicker, like it more, and also that it becomes really intuitive.
Okay, that's a big promise.
Yes.
So you can already guess my next question. Can you show us what you did in the meantime? So what were the improvements that we implemented in our systems, how we can make calibration easier?
Sure. I mean, we have set up something, So let me get over here and quickly switch the screen. So hopefully you can see that on live stream now. What you can see now is basically our camera that we took a snapshot from in Vantaa in Finland. And now I would like to present 3 calibration methods, so the 3 current ones we have. On top you can see auto calibration, and we just talked about that. So this is used good for all traffic and ITS situations, but we're going to expand on that in the future. Then on top of that, you have map-based calibration. This is also, I think, a year old now. And this allows you to use Google Map images or just satellite data. Finally, we have our, let's say, most versatile tool, but it's also the most hands-on tool. And this is a measurement-based tool. So let's go through all 3 of them and start with the measurement tool. So first, this is quite easy. You just pick a scenario, and this is a new scenario in our case. And now you can see that something has already happened. So what you can see is that the image appears curved now. And this is because we already have now lens data for our new cameras embedded here. So the focal length that you can see here and the image distortion is now already known. And this is a huge benefit because this simply makes our process more accurate and quicker. Now what you can currently see is that this is IMU data from our camera. But since we want to calibrate it ourselves and make it a bit more accurate, we can simply switch that off. So in this tool, we have to place calibration elements in the scene, and I will quickly do that. So also to be clear here, for this type of calibration, what you need is some knowledge about the scene. So for example here, I know that this traffic pole has a height of like 3.8 meters. This is the same one, so this is the same height. And then I need one more additional pole. And this is the one right here that I choose. And this has obviously a different height of 6.8 meters. So what you can see already now, we're calibrated, right? We got our information. We can obviously improve on that by simply adding more calibration elements. For example, what you can do here is to place a distance in the ground plane. And you can already see I did this before because 40 meters is exactly the value I want. So now we're calibrated. And the next important step is to verify our calibration. And by default, what you get is this dummy, and you basically can drag it through the scene to verify if the orientation makes sense, the up direction, if the size makes sense. So I can move him through the intersection. But obviously, for a traffic scenario, it's a bit too dangerous, so let's use a car instead. And we added this vehicle here, and you can just align that and see if that makes sense, what you see, and if the perspective is correct. Now, explicitly for these ITS scenarios, traffic scenarios, we also added a lane tool. The lane tool is this one right here, and this basically allows you to judge whether the width of the lane makes sense and the perspective. Obviously, in a straight case, it's somewhat simple, but you could also use it here, for example, to have this curved section, and then even adapt the width of the lanes right here. So this looks quite good, so I'm quite happy with that. This was our first tool. As I said, it requires that you have some knowledge about the scene, and sometimes, if you're not on location, you might get it through satellite data, but then you can already use satellite data. So let's use our map-based calibration. The first thing you need to do here is just select a location, and you can see I already did that. This is our location in Vantaa in Finland. And if you go to the next step, all you have to do now is to basically find corresponding points in the scene, and then you just click them. So this can be done quite quickly if you're good. Let me add a few points here, and then you will already see once I click the fourth point, let's choose one right here, that I already get a result. The cool thing is now you can use a slider up here to simply see two views, basically the warped image of the camera and the satellite view. And obviously there might be some regions where you want to improve, so you can either drag it there, select another point. Let's place it here. Place that one right here. That's a bit messed up now, but obviously you can correct for that. Let's place a fourth point here. Now we also get warnings. It's really good now because we have enough constraints now. So even though I messed up now, I got a warning that this looks somewhat incorrect. And now what I can do is simply add the final point here. And I could even, you can see that it looks a bit messed up. So I would have to clean that part up now. See. I moved this point incorrectly. So you can see this is really good. Even though I did an error here, it really tells me we have enough constraints now to find that error and to correct for that. Okay, and then finally, the part I'm most excited about is auto-calibration. And this, as I said, uses the data from our IA detector. So what we get is the 8 corner points of our what we call P3D detector. So we get basically a box around the vehicle. This gets projected to the image, and this is what we get from our AI detectors. And this allows us to directly calibrate from that. And what you can see now is quite a lot on the screen. So you see a lot of these boxes that I just mentioned. These are the 8 corner points. The cool thing here is that the camera has already been running for some time, and now you already get the result. So if you're setting up a camera and it's already running in the background, you will already get this result right here, and you're basically already done. So what you can do is you can select a sub-region like this. For example, if you have multiple planes in the scene, or if there's some strong incline that you don't want to use, you can select a region, but you want to use all of it. Then again, you can go through the verification, and I skipped that part here. And now something we also recently added, and it will be published soon, is that you can now add geolocation data at that point. And this can be simply done by simply dragging the camera to the location and aligning the satellite image with our current camera view. So I hope this gave you a good overview of our 3 methods. And with that, I would refer back to Peter.
Yeah, and Moritz, to be sure here, so you showed us 3 methods, and I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, so more intuitive tools in order to help people with calibration. Basically, still maybe the more conventional way, but at least way more intuitive, etc. That was what you showed first. The map-based calibration as the second one,
yeah,
and then the last one where you basically don't need to do anything anymore.
Exactly.
Because there the camera looks at the scene, learns from the scene, and basically then calibrates itself.
Yeah.
And okay, so that I got. And by the way, I was timing. It didn't take you up to 15 minutes or even 30, yeah. And then you were explaining 3 methods. But what is interesting, and there is also a question from the audience coming in, is that, and I think they probably mean how many times do you need to calibrate the camera? So the literal question is, what is the frequency of calibration per camera?
I mean, generally, oftentimes, if you just set up the camera, if you're oriented correctly, if you adjust all the zoom positions, you calibrate once. Obviously, with moving cameras, you might set up multiple pre-positions, and you can calibrate all of them. Now, obviously, if you change the orientation of the camera, you will have to recalibrate the camera. Yeah.
Exactly. So basically, if the scene doesn't change, then one time would be enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Then before we go, so thank you for that. I think, and I hope, and for the ones that are also live with us today here in the room, also later in one of the breakout sessions, we will get more into deep also with the auto calibration. So if there are more questions, also Moritz is there to say. And you know, Little Bird whispered to me that you also have a PhD in calibration. So if you want to talk to the expert, I would say make sure that you remember his face. Having said that, you also wanted to know a couple of things from the audience yourself. So there should be now already again a question appear on the screen where you wanted to ask for some feedback. So let's see if the next poll is there. And indeed, in this case, your question actually, Moritz, is which aspects of the setup process you would like us to further improve? And then, of course, you have 3 options, and in this case, we limited it to only 1. So you need to choose the most important one.
Exactly.
So take your time to make your selection, because this also helps us, because I liked what you said earlier, Moritz, is that improvements that we have done now with the easier tools, the map-based calibration, and also auto calibration, is based on voice of the customers. Simply feedback. Where can we improve? So this could also lead to a next step.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, personally, I have an obviously strong opinion. What it shouldn't be.
Don't give that away. Let's maybe so let's see if the first results come in. I can tell you. So we leave the questions here a little bit because, as I said, with the language it's a little bit messy because you only would see A, B, C. I can tell you that at the moment C, so the video content analysis alarm setup, is scoring highest with 57%. And votes are still coming in. So that's the first one. Can you already guess the second? No,
I mean,
they give it away already. So,
So personally, I'm really happy to see that it's C and not B. Although B also obviously is a collection of topics here. I mean, actually for C, I think first of all, that's really important input, right? I mean, obviously we have a roadmap and we address a lot of topics already. I mean, Niels mentioned already a few things. But I mean, this is really the important input we need. I mean, as I said, we have a roadmap. I think also we have a quite good understanding of what we want to do in the next time, but really this fortifies that, right? So.
And you said it, you have your own preference?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want it to be B, to be honest. Although, I mean, connectivity licensing, I mean, there's multiple points here. So I completely understand that it's also still B, because, I mean, our goal really is to improve the whole process and to streamline that. And I mean, still, I mean, with calibration, I think we did a huge leap forward now. Still, we have more things that we're well aware of that we want to fix in the future.
And I'm also looking at you now, Niels, because I can imagine that you're happy about the whole auto calibration thing. But I also believe that our customers can already take advantage of that because it's already available in our cameras.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, since our firmware 880 release earlier this year, so in March, we have this auto calibration functionality available. Therefore, I'm kind of a bit relieved that this calibration step is not the most precious one anymore. Yeah, but also the analytics is coming into focus. Yeah. Okay. And certainly this is also one topic. So therefore, it kind of reinforces what we were already looking at. That this also needs to be very simple how to set up all the rules and how to configure the alarms.
Then you had another question which you wanted to ask the audience, so let's maybe pull up the next one. So how do you see the use of the geolocation information? And also there, again, you have 3 answers to choose from. Take your pick, and then we will also look at the results. Also here you have already an opinion where...
I mean, personally, we invested some time now into really improving basically A. So, right, if you now you can get all the geolocation information with your objects. I just showed you what we're going to release soon is also to place the camera in the scene. So, I mean, I would be happy about A, but I mean, that's just my personal choice, my personal
Let's say, looking at the first results coming in, is that A is getting already 35% of the votes. 50% goes into B.
I see, yeah.
And 12% roughly into C, so here you see it.
I mean, it's good, that's great. I mean, what I really like to see is, I mean, C, obviously, as I said, we just demonstrated, we put some effort into simplifying auto calibration, that you have this geolocation with objects, but obviously what's also just showed is that now it should be much easier to locate your camera and your view on a map or in a building plan. So this should come soon. So I'm really quite happy with that result. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you can still keep on going with the votes because it's also interesting for us, as said, later on to take that or you literally take it to your desk and see how we can make good use of this. Thanks, Moritz. Max, it's your turn. Because we already said it, AI is there to stay. We need to be specific. We need to make it simple. And I think that Moritz already gave some examples of making it simple. Right. But I think you can also, and also Niels already alluded to it a couple of times, there is this interesting, I would say, chemistry between the edge and the cloud. So looking at the cloud, so how do you see that the cloud can help in, let's say, relieving or supporting our customers, users in their daily security tasks?
Yeah, well, I think one of the obvious benefits of cloud is definitely the accessibility. So it kind of relieves you from finding the access point. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can easily access it. the second biggest factor is scalability, and I think this is maybe even the main contributor of the cloud. So you don't need to worry about finding the right fit of your server infrastructure, of your system infrastructure. It will adapt to your growing needs. It might adapt even to lowering needs automatically in the background. That's not something you need to worry about if you are setting up a system. And third point might be the efficiency, and this is mainly because it comes as a service. So you don't need to install, you don't need to maintain version control and so on. The cloud will do that for you. So operators, video users can really focus on their main task, on their security task, and not be distracted by managing a system at the same time.
And you said it as security operators. Okay, those are the guys making daily use of it. There are also, of course, people that support them to install the systems. So if we focus a little bit on that group, where do we focus on as Bosch in making their lives easier?
Yeah, of course, we focus on both, especially for system integrators. However, we also see that the cloud will benefit them a lot by being closer to the actual installation. And our offering there is remote system and device management that really helps you to remotely configure, to remotely improve the system, to maintain it. And not just by doing only manual stuff remotely, but by also using convenience functions to simply do things with a click instead of going through long processes, and to stay alert and to stay up to date on what's happening with the system. And I think this is maybe the main value because it helps to proactively also communicate with end customers, to proactively solve issues. Yeah. So I think health monitoring is one of maybe, if not the biggest benefit.
Yeah, and if you talk about health monitoring, the health of the device itself, but probably also firmware.
I mean, it's the health of the device. It's cyber hygiene in a sense.
Yeah.
Understanding where are my firmwares of my fleet, and how can I maintain that? Yeah.
And you already said it, both. So now we talk more about the system integrator audience. So what about then the end users? What would you see? What is our approach there? Can you distinguish between how you would envision people are using cloud?
Yeah, basically we see three main, let me call it buckets or packages that we want to place. And the first one is a lightweight package that really gives you everything you need to check on your camera, remotely view it, maybe with a mobile-first approach, right? So really on the go, easy to use, simple to install, but has everything that you for your basic needs. Yeah, that's the light package. Then we will have a second package that is basically focusing on connecting you to an existing on-prem device, to an existing system remotely, without setting up all the networking infrastructure and keeping that up. Yeah, that's something that the cloud will take care of. And the third one would be basically an enterprise cloud solution that really fulfills high-level demands and basically is competitive to what we know from on-prem VMS systems, but definitely at the high end. Yeah.
Which also, by the way, because there is another question coming in, and it's an interesting one, and I'm looking at all three of you, so you can basically pick a little bit who takes the first go at it. So what is your opinion? So that's our opinion then in that case. If you look at the shift from hardware to software AI, and how does Bosch act on that? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think if I may approach first, I think what we definitely see as a trend is in the past, the focus for a camera was on good imaging quality, on how maybe which certifications it has, IP68 and so on, and also cybersecurity for sure. We are really good at this. Yeah? But on the other hand, now for this hardware, it's the case that you once buy the camera and it will not change. The hardware will stay the same. The software, this is continuously evolving. Yeah, so now when choosing a camera, it's not only about the product which it is today, but also the customer has to decide, do I believe in that company that they will also continuously improve on the software? And that's also one thing which we try to do. We not just try to put a product into the hands of the customer, customer today with a certain value proposition, but we also try to continuously add features. And that's also what I think everyone in the audience, but also the customers at the live stream will see also when we go into the next year. We will add more functionality even to our existing portfolio.
And probably also then relates back to what we said earlier with the IVA Pro. Those are licenses. So there are some cameras that come already pre-equipped with certain licenses, but you can already, let's say, decide to maybe put some extras. And these licenses will also be updated as we go. So it's not, let's say, a status quo. It is improvement along the lifetime of a camera.
Correct.
So that was the question. So thanks for the question from the audience. Yeah, we already spoke about it, Max. It's always that nice chemistry between where does AI sit?
Yeah.
And before, because I know that you have an opinion about it, before we go there, let's also ask again the audience here in the room, but also online. Where do you feel AI sits? Is it on the edge? Is it in the cloud? Or at the end of the day, both? So also here, let's see what the first results are. I think we can already a little bit guess the answer. I already see it coming in, so what do you think?
Hopefully cloud. No, I think probably C, because that would go in hand with also what we think.
Yeah.
So.
I think we can put the results on the screen. You're right, because with 70%, it's definitely C.
Yeah.
You see it here. Yeah, it also, you already said it, Max, it is actually going in line with what we were expecting, and also to a certain extent hoping for, because otherwise, why would we address from edge to cloud? So that brings me actually to the next question. So where does it sit, Max?
Yeah, I think it's not just my opinion. I think it will be in both places, and the edge and the cloud will work in concert. The cloud will augment the edge where it is limited because of limited compute. It will have access to more data. It will be might be a little bit ahead of the edge. Yeah, it might be also testing ground for new capabilities that are not yet on the edge. But both need to work together, because it does not make economical sense to shift everything to the cloud and just store everything in the cloud. I think our edge device is a very smart filter. It's a very smart device to also limit bandwidth consumption. Yeah, and I think this is maybe also a factor. We still see sites that have limited bandwidth, and here you really need a powerful edge device to limit the amount of transferred data to the cloud.
Something to add, Niels?
Correct. So as I also said before, I think there will for sure still be applications where we will see the edge being the better solution. For example, as I referred to latency. At the gate, when you have a license plate reader and you want to open the gate, you just simply don't want to wait for a couple of more seconds for this person until it can get in. And then also there will be privacy constraints. So for example, if you process sensitive, let's say if you talk about audio analytics, or if you talk about analytics in a sensitive area, maybe nobody wants this data to be transferred to the cloud. Yeah. So in those areas, there will still be the analytics on-premise or in the camera, and in those other areas it will be in the cloud. And as Max correctly mentioned, as we only have limited resources also on the camera, the cloud is a great way to enhance what we see on the edge, to maybe have this kind of cloud alarm verification, where you have a stronger model in the cloud to verify what the edge detected, or even for a customer who just bought cameras and still wants to use the latest, greatest features, this can enhance the experience he gets from his cameras.
So basically what we are saying, the strongest solution is actually a combination of both.
Exactly.
Because it helps leverage so-called brownfield installations where maybe the edge is not yet up to speed, or maybe some other, maybe pilot type of use cases where you say, okay, first of all want to run it in the cloud. So there is also an interesting question. I'm now looking at you because there is a question coming in from the audience about calibration and the cloud. Mm-hmm. Can the cloud and calibration play a role?
I mean, definitely. I mean, actually, what I showed you today was something where we already used a remote portal. So I was not in Vantaa, I was not in Finland. This was done through remote portal. So obviously, this is the way to go. Yeah, it shouldn't really matter where you are in order to calibrate that camera.
Okay, so remotely calibration, calibrating via the cloud in this case. Yeah, so that question we already had. Indeed, can the camera play a role in calibrating the cameras? And you just confirmed. So then, to go a little bit towards the conclusion, because I also, looking at the time, see that we are slowly but gradually going towards 10 o'clock. Let's talk a little bit about the future. So, Max, you first. So, what is your opinion, the future, and then, of course, more specifically, then the future of the cloud?
Yeah, well, we touched on a lot of topics. I think, in general, what I think we will see is not just AI to identify, recognize objects, but I could imagine, and I think we are looking also into that, AI as assisting the operator or the user of our system to come to a quicker conclusion, to draw inferences between different things that happened, right, and to come to basically a result in a quicker and more enjoyable, more holistic way. I think here AI will also help us on the software side. More specifically on what we plan, and Niels, you referred to that, on the cloud side, we will definitely have the first augmentation to edge analytics. We call that AI alarm verification, where we offer cameras that might not have IVA Pro capabilities also a way of using the latest and greatest AI capabilities from the cloud, and we are going to launch that in next year.
Okay, and if you talk next year, what should I think of?
The target is Q1.
Okay, that's a fair
That's
answer.
pretty close, yeah.
So Niels Moritz, the future, what is your opinion, and then maybe more edge related in this case?
Correct. So what we and also what customers will see, as I already mentioned before, we are committed to continuously update our software portfolio also on existing cameras. So also if you buy a camera today, one of our recent ones, let's say Dinian 5100i, Dinian 7100i, you can rest assured that we will bring even more software functionality to it. So we're just getting started. So what we saw with the IVA Pro visual gun detection, which we are very happy about, and we got this award and also now the detector award. This is just the beginning. So we have a lot more stuff in pipeline. I cannot talk about it today, but very early next year, we will see it, Q1, Q2, there will be much more functionality being added onto those cameras. So, and there's no need to wait, since it will be the same camera, and even the customers that buy it today will get more advanced analytics with the cameras they have already.
Let's also summarize, because you said it earlier, maybe you're already jumping ahead, but in the let's say, slightly over 12 months, you have been introducing all those packages, the building, the traffic, the intelligent tracking, also the parameter, but also the gun, the visual gun detection, but also the audio part of it. So also, I know that we typically have the tendency of, but that's already something of the past, but we also should not forget that happened actually in the last 12 plus months.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. There are still questions coming in, so I clearly want to go to the questions. But before that, let's make a small summary here, what we discussed. So first of all, thank you, guys, for the input. For the audience here in the room, take advantage of these guys, because they will stay. So they will stay at least until lunch. If you promise them lunch, they stay, of course. So what we clearly... If I listened carefully, AI is there. AI is there to stay. It will have a lasting impact on our video security industry. So what we will see is that more and more AI-enabled solutions, doesn't matter if it makes use of the edge of the cloud, will be seen also to protect people and property. We will be focusing on getting more into a situation of prevention. Going from... And of course, then Siri is starting to also involve herself in this discussion. It's now very confusing with all those languages. But anyhow, so what we also established, and that was more as she keeps on talking, what we also basically said is that be specific. I think we can draw the conclusion that, according to our opinion, if you also want to overcome certain limitations, make sure that AI is as specific or is as tailored as possible. So is best tailored, basically. And also, it helps us move from more reactive, because that was also something that I heard, reactive to proactive. It would be nice to have more time to respond. It would be nice to pick up on things that already maybe still need to happen in that respect. And that actually also nicely goes back to what we see as our vision as a company, the power to predict. We are not there. It still takes us a while. We still have to do quite some development, but that's clearly our direction where we want to go. And that also nicely fits where we see the future. So having said that, I think it's time for you guys to look at some questions. So let's see if we have already some first questions that are coming in. And then let's see to who I can best address this question. So the first one is coming in. So are you looking to introduce, and I look at all three of you, are you looking to introduce analytics for the healthcare sector for patient monitoring?
So
there was a little bit of a pause there.
Yeah. So I think to some degree we certainly already can address some challenges also in the healthcare segment. For example, with our IBA Pro buildings, where we can monitor people and, for example, also detect if a person is in a certain area. I think this question specifically also targets maybe some privacy overlays, maybe some detection if somebody is falling down. On the person falling, we are not so much looking into that right now. However, what we are very much concerned about is this privacy overlays. So we also just recently added to our software, for example, one functionality where you can have your video analytics still running, even though you have your whole image blurred. So basically video analytics behind the privacy masks, which might be something for certain sensitive areas where you actually just want to have some analytics, but no actual recording. But as you can also imagine from those segments which we earlier had, this is really our strategic focus. It does not specifically include healthcare. But this does not mean that we have nothing to offer for healthcare. It's just that we are more looking into the areas which you saw earlier, like government, education, airports, and so on.
But if you see a healthcare facility as a building, then you are saying, okay, that already is a nice fit, but also the privacy masking and these type of things that also are typically a request in the healthcare sector, that would be something that we could already, let's say, get into a conversation. There is a specific question to you, Niels. So you're talking about deep learning. Is behavioral AI in the roadmap for the future?
Yes, in a way. So we certainly currently have more like this object detection analytics, where we classify some object as a person or a vehicle, or now also as a gun. We are also looking into this. However, it's not something that will be coming as a next step, since we also, as ourselves, currently internally discuss a lot also about the ethical implications of how far do you want to go with this behavioral analytics. And we want to do this as Bosch very responsibly. What I could imagine is, for example, when it goes more into the direction of fighting detection, which has a clear security implication, that this is something which we would probably first look into, or maybe person falling detection. But what we certainly don't want to do is this kind of surveying where people are going and really analyzing which person it is and so on.
Yeah. Thank you. There are still questions coming in, and I already told it at the beginning, it's always a little bit hard to manage the time, and I think we had quite some topics to cover, so we are already nearing the end of our live stream. So the rest of the questions we will take with us. We will also make sure that those are being answered, and you will get it once we are also sending you the typical reply email and also thank you email where you get the information that we are sharing today. I would like to thank you for joining us again with big numbers. So thank you for that and have a nice day.